not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you believe it? It's already the 10th of July. Wow. Susan reminded me earlier. Remember it was 1980? And then the Prince song, 1999. Wow. Well, it is 2019, the 10th of July. Start things out with some open line. 1 o'clock, expecting the supervisor of elections to come on to give us an update with respect to the cruise port referendum. Invite you to be part of a discussion. Start things off, sharing your thoughts with us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you so much for the honor and the privilege. It truly is a distinct pleasure to sit here and host the show. I hope your next host is as gracious and as humble, as willing to encourage and facilitate. 949-837, 949-6990. Or you can WhatsApp 925-326-1. If I may, because I was remiss of me earlier, to remind you that we celebrate Seafarers Week this week. You can join the Seafarers from 9 o'clock in the morning till about 2 p.m. Go across the Seafarers Hall on Victoria Avenue over there in Prospect and play some dominoes. Maybe you might want to bake a cake and carry it across. I wouldn't suggest you carry a libation, but check with Mr. Denniston first. Go across and fellowship and enjoy, a bit. Maybe take your lunch. Maybe spend a little bit of time. It is, for me, a remarkable undertaking, and spend time with them, learn to celebrate with them, to hear some of their experiences, and to appreciate how wonderful this country is because of their service and sacrifice. Well, it is open line. We invite you to share with us. Give us a shout. What is on your mind? What is it that you find to be either that thing that is so depressing and almost seems to just weigh on you heavily, or that thing that's so joyous and positive that you got to share because it's uplifting. It's all sorts of things that happen in our society, and many times it's up to us to do what we can to make it better. The load sometimes is only unbearable because you try to shoulder it yourself. You don't need to be like Atlas. There are others out here who are willing to help. If you work hand in hand, make it better. I've had a chance earlier this morning to chat with some individuals. They've come back, for the summer. They're going to spend a fair bit of time. If things pan out like they plan, they'll be here for an extended period, and they'll go elsewhere, and then they'll come back. And one say, they're like the birds sometimes. They just fly in certain directions, roost for a while, and then fly another place, and then come back. And they said, in the last 3-4 decades or more, that the family and the extended family has been visiting Cayman. There probably isn't more of an opportune time than now to start to reflect on what is Cayman, what it's meant for them, what is the perhaps most significant change, or in some instances changes that have taken place, that are taking place, to the extent that can you appreciate it? And one of the fellows who, despite the obvious years under his belt, thankfully still enjoys great health, is very active, and can reflect on, maybe 3-4 decades ago at a different time when he was a bit younger, and maybe looking at life and then comparing that to the grandchildren who see things in a different perspective. Not just the way we look at how we share information or access information, but what is important to us and how certain things are safeguarded and certain things are just seemingly of little value and consequence. And he shares, it's obvious, from the Cayman perspective, like many other parts of the world, including other parts of the Caribbean, the desire to develop the country for wealth and riches to flow to the people as well as to the investor who may come from afar or who may have had a long connection with the shore. That physical landscape that has now changed, whether you are dredging and you're filling in and reclaiming other areas, whether you're adding higher buildings, whether you're knocking down older buildings because they no longer seem to have the value. And he shared some of the things that you see in Cayman. If you take away the fact that they're happening here, they could be happening in so many other places as he listed off. But he questioned whether we're changing, in addition to the landscape, we're changing the social fabric of the society. Not just that question of whether you're safe or that you can move about the country and see people and still have a genuine sense of being hospitable, being welcome, that friendliness. That is changing as well. And now he shared that you can point fingers, oh, it's those who come from outside. Yes, it is those. But those who come from outside, if they did not understand that there is a particular, an accepted level of ethos and expected behavior because they don't see the example, how are they going to know any better? He says, when he first came here, there were certain little practices that, although they were not illegal, they were not things that he weren't accustomed to or accepted back in his own country. All right, that may have been in the early 70s, and yes, there may have been issues with respect to inflation and the oil crisis and the political landscape within the U.S. at the time. When he comes to Cayman, he sees these things that are happening and realizes that behavior, which is the norm back then, in his sort of country of birth, isn't a behavior that was expected, accepted, or even sort of condoned. Now that same behavior is obviously no longer looked at in the same vein in the 21st century Cayman. Is that a good change or a bad change? And as we're talking about it, some of the grandchildren who are, just about ready to graduate from university, perhaps a few more credits under their belt and they would have been finished, had in his mind they applied themselves, they would have been finished and graduated last month or the month before, whenever the graduation was. But just because of that, his view, a lack of discipline, a lack of willingness to say, okay, if I take 2 extra credits, yes, it may be a little bit hard and 1 more class, but why not? You'll be finished that much earlier you'll be able to get on to graduate school, or you'll be able to get into the workplace, or you'll be able to do something else. Oh no, the approach is let's just coast along and make it easier. Now, is that an ethos that we're seeing not just as he's witnessing in his own family, his biological offspring, as it were? Are we seeing that in our society? For those of us who have friends and family in other Caribbean territories or other parts of the world, are we seeing that in them as well? What about in ourselves? Are we seemingly adopting that level of mindset? Well, what is your view? 949-8037, 949-6990. It's an open line. I want you to share your thoughts with us, invite you to call and maybe challenge a particular perspective. Maybe you might say, no one is talking about this thing because they are afraid, or it isn't kosher or politically correct or whatever it is. Just because we disagree with something, it doesn't mean that it's wrong, doesn't mean that it's right either. Just because we disagree with something doesn't mean that we have to say it in a vitriolic way, laden with expletives and the like. You can disagree. You can say things the way they are. Now, just because you don't necessarily call somebody by name, but otherwise, everybody knows who you're talking about, doesn't mean it's not defamation either. We need to learn how to, 1, accept criticism, 2, be able to criticize responsibly and constructively. But sometimes we just need to learn how to be willing to talk publicly in order to engage others in a mindset of how do we talk about some of the issues that we find most difficult. I share that with you because as I was cautioned, as I was expecting, maybe because I was expecting it, it happened. I don't know. I mentioned again yesterday this issue of illegal gambling. And somebody said, oh, yeah, I know. That's because you sell numbers. And, oh, yeah, because you buy numbers. No, I don't sell numbers. No, I don't buy numbers. I must share with you, sometimes when I travel to Florida, and you probably realize that I don't do that very often either, I bought the lottery. But that's only because, you know what? It's legal. I bought it. I might win. I might not win. I don't know. I don't play it because on the balance of probabilities, the chances of winning, whether you spend $1 or 10 or 100 or whatever it is so remote that that dollar would be better spent and enjoyed if I buy a chocolate or I buy something else. So it isn't to disparage those who buy it and that is their plan for retirement, or they just got that feeling and one day their ship will come in. Hey, that's fine. But a fellow who shared with me repeatedly had said to me again recently, he says, there are incidents that are occurring. Now, I didn't see it in the news. I said to him, I didn't reach out to the police to say, hey, did this thing happen? He said, this is his story, so if it's true and it identifies you, it's not, it certainly wasn't his intent because he didn't name place or time or, person. But he said, presumably, within the recent weeks, there was an altercation. He called it a scuffle. Is it a scuttle? A scuffle? And he said someone came up to the location and seemingly made certain gestures, believing that there would be money there because the person or one of the people present, was known to engage in the sale and selling of numbers and the like. Now, whether that's true or not, whether that's a frequent occurrence, but he thought, we're not at a numbers selling game house. We're in a public place, and this thing transpires. Now, what if it was that it wasn't that just a physical altercation? What if someone had a weapon? What if something else transpired? Now, he said, just because you legalize some activity that is now illegal and you regulate it, doesn't mean that behavior won't go away. Now, he did share that it seems that the government, and he was very, very pointed in saying that he is very staunch supporter of this present government because it brings together, the people that he believes are the best in terms of his leadership. He spoke most highly of Mr. Kurt Tibbetts. He referenced the fact that someone like, Mr. Bush, referring to the Honorable Speaker, a leader who speaks his mind and who seems to be willing to blaze a trail. So by those sort of political factions coming together, it can be a government of unity. And so he's very much a champion. He's on board. Now he shares, but it seems that their approach is to make legislation in the past retroactive. And he gave us an example. The practice is sometime where if you were, doing something that was illegal, maybe they're riding your bicycles without a light, they probably pass legislation and say, nope, that's okay now, you don't need a license your bicycle, or, have light and reflectors and forget about the safety issue. The petty things that are not that, significant at times get ignored. But he shared that this is perhaps one of those issues where we need to look at from the perspective. And I reference it again because after the conversation yesterday on air, that one caller who really, struck a chord with some of us, a few of you said to me, so you into that? Nope, I'm not. And it's not to maybe make any of you feel funny that you are. Hey, no business to me. 949-837, 949-6990. Call and share your thoughts, man. I'm ready for a couple of rounds until 1 o'clock when we expect the opportunity to speak about the cruise port referendum petition and verification process with the representatives from the election office. We're expecting the good fellow in the presence of the supervisor of elections to join us. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Summertime is when Cayman Airways full of people are travel to Jamaica. If you're late for checking your flight, you will lose your seat. Remember now, check-in time for Cayman Airways flight is 2 hours before departure. Make sure you're not late.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore. Traffic congestion is bad for your mental health, bad for your wallet, and bad for the environment. Did you know that Cayman's carbon emissions per capita are nearly 4 times that of Europe, according to worlddata.info? Empty car seats are a wasted resource and contribute to traffic congestion. Carpooling is socially and environmentally friendly and can save you up to $1,000 per year in fuel and upkeep. Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure Facebook page for more tips on energy-efficient commuting and be an energy advocate.
The Cayman Islands Seafarers Association wishes to inform all members that there will be a general meeting on Tuesday, 16th July at 7:30 p.m. in the Seafarers Hall, 11 Victory Avenue, Prospect. There will be 3 buses from West Bay Town Hall, which leaves at 6 p.m. The Barnes bus route in Georgetown leaves the public library parking area at 6:45 p.m., stopping at the Cayman Compass building and the Airport Fosters. The bus marked Bobo is $1 public transport and is blue in color. Pickups are from British Caymanian, Uncle Bill's, Walkers Road, Shedden Road, and Crew Road. The bus from East End. Pickups are at the school parking lot, the gas station, and the Wreck of the 10 Sails, starting at 5:45. North side pickups are at Chisholm Store and the soccer field, starting at 6:15. The Boddentown pickups is at Lorna's gas station at 6:45, and the Savannah pickups is at the gas station at 7 p.m.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us. It's open line 949-8037, 949-8037, or toll free 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Likewise, if you want to send us an email, hey, talktoday@candw.ky. Now, I was talking earlier with the individuals who on a very regular basis still love to visit Cayman. And, well, I should say, when I say that, specifically Grand Cayman. And yes, they may have investments there, properties, homes, condos, what have you. But sometimes when we get a chance to chat with these people, if they're individuals who've been coming here over the decades, so first it was, the parents, then they become grandparents, and then they become great-grandparents, and over time, you see more and more of these individuals sharing a perspective. They not only are here because it's a good place to invest, but it's safe. They have friends. And when they say that they're seeing things that are changing and they question these changes, are we dismissive? Because we think, they like it the way it was before. They don't want it to progress. They don't, they've got theirs. They don't want us to get theirs. Sure. Maybe that's true. But what if they are concerned that the things that they've seen in other places, or they see other places that they visit, they're now wondering, what are we doing to address that? For instance, we know, unfortunately, whether it's in the Caribbean or other parts, tourists, visitors to that country, when they're traveling, they may be more easily identified than the citizens and residents of that country. And as a result, they may become victims of petty crime. They're on the beach, they're a bit joyful. Maybe they've had a little too much sun or a little bit too much drink, and they become a little bit less cautious. So cameras and wallets and cars and different things get stolen. But what if they become, perhaps more serious acts of criminality against them? They're somehow attacked, killed even. different things that happen. We would not necessarily, want that to happen to anyone, not to us when we are traveling to other places, certainly not to those who come to visit us. But what about in our own society, those who live and work here? Maybe it's the first work permit that we're on, maybe it's a temporary, maybe we've been here, for a number of work permit renewals. We now have PR, maybe we have status, maybe we've been here for generations. Are we seeing those changes? Do we feel as safe in our communities? And what about the individuals who are in our society, who we work with, and we go, wow, that person is really, really, a horrible person. Now, what do we do with that? I'll give you as an example, and I share this with you because I've seen it a couple of times, and I've heard so many of you share with me. I thought, well, you know what, maybe it's just isolated incidents. But more of you are indicating that it's happening more frequently. Sadly, I've seen it, and I had to ask myself, is it because I'm out more in different places, or is it just that it's happening so much and I didn't want to acknowledge it, but it's so obvious? I'll give you as a case in point. Just last evening, some of you may have noticed that it rained in certain parts. I happened to have been out. It was raining. There were other people, outside in the rain waiting to do what needed to be done, because otherwise it couldn't happen otherwise. Well, someone didn't feel that he should wait and decides to storm off. That's fine. But in the presence of leaving, his comments and hand gestures weren't, pleasant, and saying, bye, I'll see you later, have a good evening. Now, is that necessary? Because you have to wait in line, there are others before you. Now, you don't want to stand in the rain, fair enough. That's your choice. But to make such utterances and gestures to others that are there, how does that reflect on you? And what is that saying about the society that we're becoming? It's just a simple thing that, unfortunately, isn't really that simple. And if our society becomes accepting of that, then how do we do it? On the other vein, I'll go back to the individuals that I referenced earlier who shared. They didn't know what to think of it when they first witnessed it. Remember way back when people applying for status used to have their pictures in the paper? Some of you might say, boy, we should do that again. Some of you thought, probably that's not a good thing. Well, they gave me a perspective, and they said, okay, they thought of it, and I thought at first it wasn't really, that good. It certainly was lucrative for the newspaper of the day. Maybe the government could put it in a different vein today so that people can see. How do you know who's applying? The people who apply for these things, like anyone who's applying for a job or a scholarship or needs any sort of reference, they ask people that they think would be a positive referee to write something glowing, hopeful or truthful about them, to support their application for the scholarship or for the residence or the status or what have you. But what about the people who say, you know what, I worked with John, or I worked with Sue or Mary or Peter, and I know that person isn't as nice as you think the person is, so should not, just like you give a letter of reference, should you not be able to write and say, here's my perspective on this person? No, it's just a perspective. If you do that, what would happen? It got me to thinking, and I'm wondering, should I do the same? What do you think, Miss Susan? Someone's applying for status, and I know differently. Should I say, I'm going to write in and say, hey, you know what? This person is a horrible person. Here's my story. Now, if I did that, would I be looked at as a pariah and a horrible person? More than likely, she says. Come on, Miss Susan, wait a minute. She's so quiet. And I ask you that because that is something that many of us have looked at before. We look at organizations in which we work. Someone comes into the organization and just relays a whirlwind, turns the place upside down. Not in a good way. Some of us will leave because we don't want a confrontation. Some of us stay there and we just find a way to withdraw, and other times. And it's interesting to see the changes. And I raise all of that because sometimes the people who have come here, long ago, who continue to come here, can share with us, a perspective that we may not necessarily see. Doesn't mean that it's right, doesn't mean that it's good. But if we listen, there may be some things in there that we've heard from other people, like them, who've come here and been here for a long time. or like others who've always been here. If we can hear other perspectives, it may cause us to grow as a person, to be better at discerning what is before us, and to make better, more informed choices and decisions that are going to impact us. Now, your perspective. It is summer, and I'll be honest with you, when I wrote the 10th of July this morning on my notation, I thought, I can't believe it already. I recognize it's 2019 only because a good friend says to me, "See, I know you like me." He said, "You wish the election was next year." I said, "Oh yeah." I thought he meant, and it came on. He said, "Well, don't worry. The U.S. president only got a few more months left." And that was a very interesting discussion because he was the only one in the group who was willing to advocate that he was against the fella. The other ones were like, "Hey, you leave him alone." But I share that to say simply that the ability to freely make fun of our public officials, hopefully we do so with a semblance of respect and not make it a personal attack, is a freedom that isn't enjoyed in many places. But sadly, sometimes, and perhaps understandably, we say things about whether it's the Honorable Premier, the Honorable Speaker, or the like, and it's a bit petty and personal, and sometimes, you're human, it may get under the skin. But the question to be asked, what would constitute a public official? Would the governor? Would the president of a country, or in our case, the premier? Would any of the members of the Legislative Assembly? What about, our I don't want to use the word celebrities, because that's certainly how I look at myself, but the talk show hosts, the newscasters on TV, the people that we see, so those public personalities and the like. What about the lawyers? There are some very well-known lawyers in our communities. What about the judges? Can we make fun of them? Maybe you watch sometimes little caricatures of things that go on in the courts, and you see, great drawings of the witness or the counsel or even the judge sometimes, or the defendant or the witnesses or what have you. But could we poke fun at the judiciary? Could we poke fun at, maybe some of the organizations or some of the business leaders? Now, in some societies, you don't do that, and in others, it's accepted, right? And when you do it, is it sort of a satirical, viewpoint that is being put forward? Those of you who enjoy reading the New Yorker magazine, for instance, may be more accustomed to that. But what about the whole nature of some jurisdictions where you can make fun of everybody except the clergy? A fellow said to me he was traveling through a particular, European city, and there were a number of people who were misbehaving. And I think he used the word priest, but I thought it was a different word. Priest walked by, and just with the black outfit and the white collar or whatever it was that he had on, or the red, whatever it was, and just that outfit was enough to disperse and calm the behavior. That to me, would be telling of a society that still harbors some semblance of respect for institutions. Not to say that, again, that if you, were to say something disparaging, could it be something beneficial? Well, what is your view? 949-8037, 949-6990. If you want to share a thought with us on our WhatsApp, 925-3261. You can record a voice note. I think we can still listen to it. If you type it up and send it across, or however, we're happy to read it for you if you want us to do that. If, like the one that just came through, I'll look at it in a second. I note what the little symbol is. The person has this tendency to share. Okay, read it, see what you think, and share it. But don't say it came from me. That's let's see. That's what is to be said. I don't know what it is. So when I come back, you'll know if I know. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
King Sports Center Art of Fun Summer Camp is back from July 2nd to August 2nd. Now in its 15th year, the Art of Fun Camp is ideal for kids ages 5 through 10 with activities from football, basketball, dodgeball, squash, rock climbing, arts and craft, dance, singing, and more. Your child can practice physical and social skills while having fun in a safe and secure environment. For more info, call 946-KING. Like King's Sports Center on Facebook, and you can also find them on Instagram or call 946-5464. King Sports Center, providing you with all your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs. Register before May 31st and save 10% on camp registration.
If your business is over here, but your customers are over here, adding more yellow to your business will bring you both right here. With everyone searching yellows, print, online, and mobile app, getting your business noticed is easier than ever. Book your consultation today at findyellow.com.
Hi, this is Bob Kingsley, and this weekend,
the Bob Kingsley Top 40 Countdown is brought to you by Merengue Town. Liven up your weekends and let loose with the grooves of Merengue Town. It's time. Feel the rhythm. Time to feel the vibes. It's time for Merengue Town.
And, of course, the rest of the 40 hottest hit makers on the radio this weekend, right here on the Country Top 40.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. It's open line 949-8037, 949-6990. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. Or you can email talktoday@candw.ky. Now, what is it, as we look at our summer, that you feel, well, it's going to be a bit of a rain summer as a result of the rain? Some of us may find that it seems to be a bit hotter than normal. Others may say, well, this summer I can have a little more time because the sun isn't setting as early. Does that mean that you're working later because you can leave later and still not be dark? Are you taking the extra time to get outside, whether in your garden, whether to exercise or otherwise? And I ask that only because of the message that was sent, as I referenced going to the break. The fellow sort of sent, and I say this respectfully, because this is a short epistle compared to the volumes and almost the quatrains I think sometimes he sends through. It's people like that really keep you on your toes, keep you informed. And I didn't get to read it all, but the gist, as I scanned it, it's obviously speaking to this whole issue that the society. He started out by saying the discussion yesterday with Dr. Matthews and the other physicians, was very, very telling. And he goes on to share that the notion of the society's wealth being measured by the health of its people needs to be, explored even further. He shared, as an example, in his organization, there are some staff who became ill, some after travel, some unexpected. And he said these are, not things that are isolated, but because of the illness, a few things were very evident. One, the workload had to be shifted and shared by the others. And given that the staff are not just staff, they're sort of partners, shareholders, and the like, it's not an easy replacement. Because of that, perhaps, he shares, they feel obligated. They got to come in and pull their weight, even though physically they don't have the health to do so. As an example, as I was reading, what he shared, I give as an example. Let's say someone has, injured their hand. It's not serious, but it's just temporary. Can that person use that hand to help you to maybe pull the rope when they need two hands to help you. When these things happen, in our society, how are we looking at it? So back to his comments relative to the health of the nation being measured, as a true indication of its real wealth. And he says his organization, because of this, their increased costs, they have to hire other staff, by them being sort of the proprietors or the principals. This additional cost means, less money at the end of the day to share if there's profit, but also means that more money going out because you have to pay this additional staff for the support. You're not bringing in any more money, just replacing people to help to fill that void while the staff recovers. There's pension, there's health, there's all these things. But he says, what if that is considered on a global scale and you have this notion now that your society isn't as healthy? The healthcare costs are increasing. What can we do? So he shares that with the summer being where it is, and despite the rains, could we look at making our society more accessible for those who want to exercise? Not just out on the beach or in the water, but perhaps around our neighborhoods. Are there things that we can do? Are the roads as safe as they should be? Do we have accessible green spaces? Are we, he said, even of the mindset to want to go outside? Maybe it's first thing in the morning as the sun is coming up. Maybe it's in the evening as the sun is going down. Now, if there are questions of mosquitoes and the like, or dogs or other, issues that could serve to impede us from going out, any excuse, I guess, is better than some. But he shares, even in our households, as adults, it's too hot out there, I don't want to go out there and sweat. Our children, I don't want to go out there, I'd rather stay inside and play the video game or watch the TV or what have you. Now, challenges. Let's pick up this voice note, and I think we have a quick reminder, equally, as Ms. Susan was telling me earlier, about our video streaming. So she'll tell me that so I don't get it wrong, and then I'll repeat it to all you, or she can just tell us straight too. Come on, Ms. Susan, you can talk. All right, voice note first. All right, let's listen to one of our voice notes.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Sterling. Hope you're doing well today and enjoying the rain. About the conversation yesterday, briefly about the illegal lottery. You should invite Mr. Gilbert McLean on to your show one day to speak specifically about that. I remember he got a petition up and had 600 signatures signed to support it, which would benefit the country a lot. I even see now that in Florida that they're supporting college students with the lottery there, and it's a lot that Cayman could do with that money for the lottery. And the caller yesterday that spoke about it, I agree with him. You could get people licensed from government to sell it, and then one caught selling it without a license, there would be a fine and a penalty. But you should invite Mr. Gilbert McLean on, because I understand maybe he might be preparing to get it up again, going again, 600 signatures. And I think he said he submitted it into someone, but nothing, some government official, but nothing was done about it. So maybe you can get him on and let's hear how the country could benefit from it. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.
All right, well, thanks to that caller for listening and for sharing through that voice note via WhatsApp. And others can do likewise as well. I think more and more we find that way to be convenient for us. And I appreciate not only the sentiments and the opportunity to that call, but the notion that so many people, like the caller, who didn't say whether he's for or against, and I wouldn't ask that we imply or infer that he is for or against, but it just shows it's a conversation. Now, for those of you who are joining us, we had a chance, as promised, to be able to welcome to our studio in his capacity as the supervisor of elections, He wears many hats. I'm told one of them will soon be, a budding saxophonist as well. But Mr. Wesley Howell, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming and sharing. I really appreciate it. And I love music. Now, I play the radio. Okay, that's about it. I didn't think I did well with a recorder. I wish I was able to follow my father and play the guitar, but I discovered early on. The hand on the right and the hand on the left. One could hold the chords, the other couldn't strum the strings. So, but you, the saxophone, maybe? Who knows?
I don't play. My father's genes, I think, flowed through me into my youngest, who does some instruments as well. And he has, I think, what some would describe as perfect ear. So he can hear a snippet of a song and be able to tell you which song it was and how the melody goes. So very much like his grandfather in that respect.
Wow.
But like you, I play a wicked iTunes and other things to get my music fixed.
I play a wicked radio Cayman. I mean, I got it. So what I'm hearing now, both of us as fathers, we missed up what our fathers gave, but thankfully our children picked it up.
Absolutely.
But at least we're handsome. Susan, like,
we hope so.
She almost had the chair. You shouldn't say that, she said. No, she didn't say that. But thank you. And I know as we get settled and we go to our news break, the notion, and you have an incredible taxing day. You were thankfully on the media circuit this morning with us as well. And for people who may have heard, may have missed a bit, sometimes repetition is helpful.
Absolutely.
And this is an important process, not just historically, but what it could mean for the country in many ways. So we appreciate you taking time to share with us. As we go into the break, perhaps any sort of opening salvos?
No, I just want to say thank you to our staff members. I know some of our folks at the office, our superstars, are listening in. They're delivering world-class customer service to people that are coming in to verify their petitions, update their voter information, even pick up a voter ID card for the first time. So to the ladies who probably hadn't eaten lunch yet,
bring some for us.
Thank you for your support. No, it might be the other way around. I might need to bring some for them.
Yeah, but you're a good person, man. Well, I appreciate that. So we're going to talk about that whole process, the verification, what's happening. And I must share with you to see the extended hours of the elections office, to see the locations where we as people on Saturdays are out and about doing our shopping. It is, it's something that we each probably have a view, but it's necessary, and hopefully we'll get through it. Maybe there are things that we can do if we think it could help. So share with us.
Absolutely.
Right. Mr. Wesley Howell sits with us in his capacity as the supervisor of elections. When we come back from our news break, we'll share with you. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your latest headlines, I'm April Cummings. Harbor Walk and IRG executives, along with the Minister of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure, the Honorable Joey Hugh, broke ground Tuesday on Harbor Walk. The new project is located in Grand Harbor and will feature shops, offices, restaurants, bars, and a cafe and apartments. It's scheduled for completion in July 2021. In international news, a former oilfield worker camp off a dirt road in rural Texas has become the U.S. government's newest holding center for detaining migrant children after they leave Border Patrol stations. It's an effort to address complaints of overcrowding and filthy conditions. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says about 225 children are being held at the site in Carrizo Springs, with plans to expand to as many as 1,300, which would make it one of the biggest camps in the U.S. government system. Scientists say they have identified the earliest sign of our species outside Africa, with a chunk of skull recovered from a cave in southern Greece. Its estimated age is about 210,000 years old, making it 16,000 or more years older than an upper jaw bone from Israel that was reported last year. It shows our species began leaving Africa much earlier than previously thought, that according to researchers today. And a storm swamped streets in New Orleans, prompting a tornado warning near the city today, as concerns grew that even worse weather is on the way to Louisiana and other states along the Gulf of Mexico. The storms are associated with a broad area of disturbed weather in the Gulf that is expected to strengthen this weekend when it threatens the region with torrential rain. Those are your headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of us.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
What do we love more than summertime? Extra flights between Cayman and Jamaica with Cayman Airways, of course. Cayman Airways has added extra flights weekly for travel between Grand Cayman and Kingston this July and August. Visit family and friends in Jamaica or send for them to visit you in Cayman. But hurry, these extra seats will sell out fast, so book yours today. Remember now, check-in time is 2 hours before departure. Call Cayman Airways reservations on 949-2311. Contact a travel agent or book online at CaymanAirways.com.
Some of us have perfect skin, and some of us have trouble with acne, age spots, and sun-damaged skin. Protect your skin, reduce the effects of sun damage, and restore a healthy, glowing look with dermatology treatment at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa. General, cosmetic, and surgical dermatologist services by Dr. Geronimo Jones include treatment of acne, keloids, eczema, hair and nail disorders, and skin complications from chronic sun damage. Dermatology treatments are covered by most insurance providers. Book your consult with Dr. Geronimo Jones at Beyond Basics today. Call 945-2737.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after,
BritK protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after,
visit BritK.ky or call 949-8699.
BritK, where people come first.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome back to Talk Today. In the studio, we're speaking to the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell, and as we get a chance to now chat, I must say, without question, you were scheduled to come for when people talk about Cayman time. I know that, like you, and like specifically a lot of the older folks, the seafarers, they say 1 o'clock, 1:45, they're there. Rarely is it that they're not. And that's respectful, because time is that thing that we can't control. We can control how we use it. So thank you, sir, for the extended time and for sharing with us as much as possible. This notion, though, with this referendum, if I'm not being disrespectful in this question. I've had a couple of older, I guess more senior folks in our society say, well, this is historic, no question. It is the first under our Constitution, but it isn't the first sort of, quote unquote, referendum petition. Because when the ladies who said, we should have the same sense of, parity, that was the first referendum. Is that semantics? Does it really matter?
No, absolutely, and it's a critical point because we can have petitions for all sorts of stuff. My young men, my two boys, 115, 113, petition us as parents all the time, and they want access to certain areas and that sort of thing. So, but in more seriousness, the petitions are a means of folks expressing their desires. What makes the process that we're in now quite unique is that, one, this is a people-initiated referendum. So if I draw a segue to Brexit, so with Brexit and all that's going on with that, there was no mechanism for the people to actually initiate the referendum for Brexit directly. What they did was sort of that groundswell approach to convince ministers to then argue for a referendum, which they then carry forward. So our bit in relation to the UK is quite different in that we actually have the means through Section 7 for folks to initiate a referendum. And then if they pass the test of the 25%, which is where we've been invited to verify, and the national interest test, then that goes forward as a petition. With our current legislation framework, that requires a specific piece of legislation that would authorize the referendum, set the question, set the date, and then move forward. If the persons voting for that referendum are 50% plus one of the registered voters, not those voting, but of the full list of electors, if they're in support of whatever that question is, then that referendum is binding on the government. So, it is unique in the aspect of very few countries have the people initiative aspect, and then the fact that it's also binding on the government, because other ones, the reference of sort of advisory, and the government can take it into consideration as they move forward. So that those bits make it unique for us. And then when we add our demographics to it, the size of our register of electors is a fraction of some countries. I shared on another talk show earlier this week that when I was doing some professional development in relation to managing elections in the UK, the instructor was the former head of the UK Electoral Commission, and in that session that we had, a week-long session, were folks from Nigeria. 80 million people on their electoral register, so at that point we were about 18,000, 17,000 an hour. So they were saying, your total? I say, yeah. We were just down the road from Waterloo Station. I say, there's more people that pass through Waterloo Station this morning than live in my country, the whole country. So, 60,000 people at that time was so the scale is quite different. So, while some folks are sort of resisting the full list verification, if you were attempting to do something like that in Nigeria, it would take years, but this is something that we can do in weeks here in Cayman, and without the legislation sort of saying how we should do it, this thorough approach I think will satisfy the question as to the authenticity of all the signatures all the way through.
And I think this, from just sitting here in this seat and then from walking in the community, I think that every single person wants this to be as as valid as possible, the verification process. Now, they don't want it delayed, but they don't want to rush, and then you have these questions down the road, a decade even down the road, people saying, oh, well, they want it to be a sense of legitimacy, so when they look back. I think that bodes well for the ethos in the society. If I may ask, though, just for clarity for those of us who perhaps don't fully understand the process, under our Constitution, there are two ways, sort of, I guess a referendum vote can be had. The people can initiate one, or the government can say, well, we're going to do one as they did for the one man, one vote process.
And the Constitution itself. Right?
Yeah, and the Constitution itself.
Yeah, so we've had two in recent history that the people have voted at a referendum to decide.
Okay. When there is a referendum vote, is the threshold different, irrespective, or different whether it's one that the government brings or if it's one that the people brings?
So the threshold is different in relation to people initiated for it to be binding on the government. So that is those voting in the affirmative for the question, whatever that question may be, have to be at a number that is not the majority that comes out on that day, but 50% plus one of the entire list of registered electors. So
if that's when the people bring it, or when
that's when the people bring it.
Yeah. So 50% of the total number of registered electors plus one
have to vote in the affirmative for whatever the question is in that referendum. The government.
Just before you go, forgive me. In that instance, then those who stay away, they say would be considered as a no vote by default.
Yeah, so that would make it more difficult to reach the 50% because less people are voting. Right. So yeah.
Okay, and I'll come to that later, but I just wanted to clarify just to make sure, because we saw that argument with the referendum for the one person, one vote. So one man, one vote. I mean, man and whoa, man. Okay, so it's 50% of the total number of electors plus one.
Yes,
one person.
Yeah.
So if it's 20,000, 10,000. Plus one person,
yes,
right, would be 50%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yes, okay. Sorry, and the second way
on the government initiative referendums, those are not binding. So it would be a simple majority in order for a decision in relation to, the context of the intent of the people in relation to that.
So a government initiative referendum isn't binding.
It's non-binding per the Constitution.
But one by the people. If it's the people say this is our view on this thing per our vote, the government has to do or not do.
It is
whatever.
binding.
It's
it
binding.
Is binding. Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate it.
So very different, and because of the fact that it's one people initiated and two that it is binding, that brings a certain amount of clout to the exercise. Of the people initiated, so that's why there's so much energy, sort of behind this type of an approach. Yeah,
we do have a call, Mr. Howell, and I'll want to come back to you in the relation. So don't, let me distract you asking about the binding and not binding, and we talk about the Constitution referendum itself. But we have the excellent company. He's been so gracious with his time. I don't know how he finds more than 24 hours in a day, but he has. Must see a trick the civil service has. We'll learn that in a bit. Miss Susan is going to field a couple of calls for us. Let's go to the first one. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hey, good friend. Welcome. How are you?
Pretty good. Good afternoon, Mr. Howell.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm pretty good, man. I wasn't going to call in, obviously. I was just going to listen in. But you mentioned two things that I just wanted to ask you a question on. And certainly before I do that, I just want to extend great gratitude from all of the members of CPR and all of the volunteers for you taking on this task and obviously being able to already verify 27% of the registered signatures in which we provided you guys with. I think you're doing a great job. Obviously, a lot of the concerns we've expressed out of the gate was only because we wanted to see a high level of integrity moving forward, not only for your office, but for the work that was put into the petition and all of the many hours and things that people had donated of their time was also just as equally as respected as everybody's view on it. Now, you mentioned in the early part, and I just want some clarity, really. It's not really a question, just some clarity. When you said that once the verification process is confirmed and 25% has reached, then it has to go through a process of whether or not it's a matter of national importance. Now, I would imagine that because at that point, then once it's verified and handed to cabinet, then it's obviously out of your hands. So I'm just asking if there's something that you may be aware of why you made that comment in terms of the government taking the position that once it's verified of the 25% of the electorate, which is required under the Constitution, that then they would take the petition and have it be subject to whether or not it's a matter of national importance. Because one, I can see the first major concern with that is that it's been a national topic for more than a decade, Over 6,000 people have now signed this petition. Not all have been turned into you just yet, but you'll be getting a new list. Secondly, I would think that if the government takes a position that it's not a matter of national importance, then they would have a very eerie question to answer in terms of then why have they spent so much money on advertising the importance of it in the light of the petition starting in August of 2018. So that's one thing. And second thing is that when we look at the process moving forward, and when we make references or to other countries that have 80 million voters, like you did earlier, and I only say this for clarity so people understand that there is a level of fairness. In a country that has 80 million people on their electorate, and there's a petition, would not use the methodology which is used in this particular verification process, because it wouldn't take years, it would take forever in order to verify. So there would be simpler mechanisms put in place, like in similar jurisdictions like Switzerland and New Zealand, where they check the signatures against the voter registration card in a database that they already currently have. So in a position where a country has 80 million people who sought out to do a petition, they wouldn't use the verification process in which the election office here used for 20,000 electorate to verify 80 million people, or a portion of 25% of 80 million people. And one point, and the last point before I leave, and I'll listen in, and that is, if you look at other jurisdictions that are similar to the Cayman Islands, including some of the overseas territories, you would see that a 25% requirement to trigger a referendum is not required in some of those. And certainly to win the referendum, it's not required 50% plus one. So, and obviously those things can be left for speculation as to why it's that way. And I think we all have our own, or drawn our own opinion based on what we've seen politics evolve to over the past 30 years. But and that's just people's personal opinion. But I'm just happy that in a short period of time that you and your office have been able to verify over 1,500 people, which tells you that even if we looked at that petition right now as it is for what it's worth, it screams that people are concerned and people want to be involved, and the definition of referendum is so that people of a country that they're registered and live in to vote in can be more involved with the political process and decisions that are being made that fundamentally affect those people moving forward in the future. So again, continue the good work. I hope that your predictions were correct in terms of the timeline of completing the process. And you have a good day, and I'll listen in.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing with that. And
no, I thank the caller for his actually kind words. In relation to that, I think we agree on the 80 million approach would be very different, and hopefully underpinned by some guiding legislation which don't apply to us here. In respect of the first statement I made in relation to the national importance, I was actually basing that on the Cayman Compass coverage of the last LABD, where I believe the leader of the opposition put that question directed to the Premier on the floor of the LA. And according to that newspaper article of the 5th of June, I'm paraphrasing here, but the Premier said the government has not yet taken a position on the matter of national importance. So that was as of the 5th of June. So not something from my office at all. That was publicly available information that I was using there. Yeah. So the caller is absolutely right in relation to if we are able to verify up to that 25%, we will then stop our process and turn it over that process then to Cabinet for it to
well, we did have a notation to ask you about the national interest test. That's one of our first points. But the caller allowed us to maybe advance that.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll come back to that in a second, because I think I was thinking of this discussion, and I don't want people to hear things all the time and then all of a sudden stop listening because, I heard it before. It's like the class, you the subject every day, but like math, if you don't practice it repetitively,
absolutely.
You get rusty, right? I don't think I remember the quadratic equation.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any use for it anymore either, but that's what my spreadsheet is for. But at least if I know of it, right? Could we then revisit from that perspective this notion that you were sharing, binding and non-binding? And I want to repeat to make sure I don't misunderstand. People's initiative referendum is a binding on the government. The government brings a referendum. It's not binding. It's advisory, I guess would be the other term. For a people initiative referendum, the threshold, as a caller pointed out, 50% plus one. And then for government, it's of the people who turn out on the day. So, for argument's sake, if only 100 people decided to turn out that day, 100 voted in favor, or only 51, that thing passes because it was of the day. All right.
But advisory.
But advisory.
Yes.
Our constitutional referendum, which was the first one in recent times, the referendum for the support of the Constitution, was one that the government brought. So the threshold was of the people who voted on the day.
Actually, at that time, it was a different constitution. So our 72 constitution did not have a mechanism for people-initiated referendum. That only came into place with the 2009 constitution.
Right.
So that petition that was circulating prior to that government-initiated referendum was, again, a groundswell approach, but not constitutionally driven through the constitutional provisions of the 72 Constitution.
Okay, so let me ask you this way then. When we went to our general election and we were voting for our candidates, and then we also had a separate booth to one side or the next, you go in there and you vote for the Constitution, yes or no, do you approve it?
Yes.
That was adjudicated on the basis of the number of people who actually voted at that time.
Yeah.
And it was a majority of the percentage of people on that time.
And that sort of gave the mandate of the people what the people wanted in relation to the Constitution.
And the reason why I ask, even though it's historical in a sense, now we can't go back to it, to this day, there are people who say, well, I didn't approve it, so I thought, what they say, but thinking, and so I didn't vote yes or no because they believe with the thing. With this instance, now we need to be as informed as we want people to pay attention.
Absolutely.
Because with the Constitution, there are those who argue, well, it really didn't pass the test. It was only a small number of people relative to the percentage on the electoral register at the time. Anyway.
So I mean, if Mr. Billy Adam is listening, I can still remember Mr. Billy talking into the wee hours of the morning, doing his post-election dissection, and he always makes the point that our system of voting for candidates, this is now in relation to first past the post, doesn't give a majority representation in all cases for candidates. A little bit different now that we have the single-member electoral districts and a smaller number of persons winning, so persons could, foreseeably win by a majority of the voters. But in other countries, there's, single transferable votes, so you vote for your number 1, 2, and 3, or you have a runoff election where you narrow it down. We can argue about that here and there, but I say all that to say even in a general election, we can have cases where candidates get elected on a small percentage, but they're the highest percentage, so they're the first past the post in relation to getting the most votes, but it's not a majority of the elected persons within that single member electoral district. So a bit of
it is something that I hope not only through your office, but with great respect to you and your office, the general public would be more inclined to start having this kind of discussion in terms of electoral reform. Should it be this way? Should it be that way? Should we have this? What does this mean? And then perhaps through your expertise and guidance, we can come in. If you want this, this is what this would mean, so that the country start to think and talk and maybe put something in place that is one helps to inform the democracy and make it as healthy as possible.
Absolutely.
Respectfully, as we go through some of the discussion, we do have another caller. Let's join the call and get a perspective from our listeners. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
My friend, good afternoon to you. How are you today?
Okay, good afternoon to Mr. Howell.
Afternoon, sir. How you do?
Okay. Yes, Mr. Howell, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to vote on this referendum?
Can I vote?
Yes.
I am a registered voter, yes.
You're able to vote on this referendum with the port then?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. And all other civil servants are able to also?
If they're registered to vote, absolutely. Civil servants actually make up a significant portion of the number of registered electors.
Okay, so those who choose not to vote, I guess it's probably out of fear of or concern of getting in problems with their work. Do you think?
I wouldn't say that, and from our verification process, we have verified signatures of civil servants who have no qualms about their signatures being verified, and that that has not been an issue for us at all.
Okay, with that, I'm glad to hear that. That was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much too. And to that caller's point, maybe I can ask. I believe that we've taken it for granted, but it bears sort of repeating and being reminded. We have an excellent electoral system. It's very confidential. I've shared that I signed a petition. Now, someone will say, "Oh, that's because you fought, because you're a civil servant, you're part of the government, or you're against it." Because I signed it because you know what? I respect that I live in a place where I have a say. Now, it may mean that it's only one in X number, but at least I feel like I have a say. Verify my signature. If it goes to the thing, I'm going to go there, God's within health and strength, in the presence of mind, and say, okay, I'm going to put my vote this way or that way.
And I mean, to their credit, the CPR group were very strategic in the way that they worded the petition. So persons that are signing are not necessarily saying that they're for or against the port. They're actually calling for a referendum so that decision can be made by the people. That's what it is. So I can't prejudge someone who's put their name down to say where they are.
Exactly.
That's not my role. So and we go through that in training. This is if persons ask you if this is a petition to say no, then no, this is. And we've copied their wording so that we don't, paraphrase anything to say this is the petition that you've signed, so not to confuse with, other petitions that are going around. Exactly. So, but that's a clear point that the signatures on the paper doesn't mean necessarily that that's a anti-port approach.
Exactly, and I think that shows the responsibility, but also the respectfulness that we have of the people and the process, the system, so that we do this. Obviously, one of the things that we're going to ask later on is the question when we get there. But this is just, hey, can we have, as an electorate, a say in this thing because we think it's, of this? Yes, there are people who are going to have a stronger view one way or the other. They may hold to that view. It may change over time. But if you have information, then at least you'll be able to make an informed decision. Now, with that, we look at the notion that, as the first caller shared, it's 25% of the electorate. The process started November last year in earnest, or sometime last year. Yeah. And now it's been ongoing. And it's been a voluntary effort. We see other things. With that, the electoral register is updated every so often. Without any sort of inference that would impugn anybody. Is it 25% of the time it's submitted, time was started, the time it's going to be verified? I mean, it's not a significant number, but it's still a few cents in the jar, as it were.
So we've had one electoral register come into force since we've received the petition. Right. That has increased the number of electors slightly, which is an indication, again, that there's some interest there, because normally in a non-election year, we remove persons who are deceased and otherwise ineligible to vote. So typically our voter registration additions are not as great as the persons that are being removed for various reasons. So our list tends to not grow in the off-season. That's not the case in this instance. So it has grown so that the number has shifted slightly. I can do the math here during the break. But the persons who sort of pre-signed the petition that became electors on July 1st outweigh the number of additional persons that would need for that 25%. So, for me, it's neither here nor there in relation to, we're quibbling about
it's a small number.
Yeah. But the benefit of additional signatures being coming on stream for the July 1st list, again, a significant number of those persons who registered to vote did so primarily so that they could participate in this petition. And,
right. Yeah. So as you go through the break, just for clarity, then, do we know what electoral lists will be the one used? Is it the one next quarter? Was it the one last quarter? When?
So as we're hoping to wrap this up end of July, early part of August at the very latest, we are looking at the July 1st list, because our next list of electors is going to be the 1st of October.
Okay. All right, well, we'll ask if it's not a great deal of trouble. I think I had it here, but I wanted to get formally and officially from this over election what that number of electors that we're looking at.
I'll do some math during the break.
Yeah, and I think it could probably be a couple of days break because we got to do math. I'm just kidding. It'll be a few seconds. Because Susan, I like to see her laugh. We're talking, and honestly, we're enjoying the learning opportunity to speak with our supervisor of elections. We invite you to join us after the break.
Sometimes having a middleman is not a bad thing, especially when it comes to insurance. Do you know that when it comes to cost, ease, speed, and peace of mind, insurance brokers ranked higher than when customers buy direct? So, for all your insurance needs, call Fidelity Insurance. We're the middleman you want. Call us today at 949-7822. Fidelity. We're good for you.
Always separate debris from household garbage after a hurricane hits. Debris includes roofing materials, downed tree branches, and metals. All items of debris must be placed in separate piles to the front of the property or at a side that is easily accessible to collection trucks. Debris must be placed in a location that will not cause obstruction to roadways or come in contact with electrical lines. For more post-hurricane waste management tips, visit the DEH website at www.deh.gov.ky.
Just to remind you, Radio Cayman's Breeze Fusion Walk Run is back. Registrations are now open at www.caymanactive.com, or you can stop by our studios here at Radio Cayman. Race day is Saturday, November 2nd, and it's going to be bigger and better with the new 10K run for half marathon trainers as well as the 5K walk run. This year's funds will go to support the Central Scranton Park and also the NCVO. Registration is only $15 if registered by September 30th. And all early registrants enter to win a Cayman Airways voucher. The Breeze Fusion 5K 10K walk run is going down Saturday, November 2nd. Don't delay. Register today.
Summertime is when Cayman Airways full of people are travel to Jamaica. If you're late for checking your flight, you will lose your seat. Remember now, check-in time for Cayman Airways flight is 2 hours before departure. Make sure you're not late.
The management of Health Service Station Limited would like to take this opportunity to notify their customers that due to unforeseen circumstances, they will be reopening on Thursday, July 11th at 6 a.m. Management sincerely apologizes for this delay and appreciates your understanding in this matter.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. And it is the excellent company of Mr. Wesley Howell, this time in his capacity as the supervisor of elections, and talking about what we reference the cruise port petition, seeking a referendum on this whole issue. Would that be how we should phrase this? So Susan can type it up and send me the notes.
Absolutely.
All right. As we were going to the break, we're talking about the threshold of 25% and how much, which electoral register and what that sum would be. Well, we've sent it to our auditors. One of the big accountants. I'm just kidding. What's the number, sir?
So the previous number based on the 1st of April list would have been 5289, and the new number based on the electoral register now as it stands, which is 21,166 electors, would be 5292. So that's an increase of 3 persons.
Okay, so we do the math and sort of percentage increase. Take one clarify. No, it's only a small number. So three additional people.
Persons.
All
yeah.
right.
And like I said, there have been more than 3 persons who have been able to then be counted as a person to be verified as a result of that list coming into force on the 1st of July.
Okay. And as we advance our discussion, I don't want to jump all over the place because I had some idea of where we're going, but let's say for argument's sake, the timeline as you shared, end of this month, maybe early part of August to have this thing wrapped up so that you verify the process E&E, and then the next sort of official electoral register would be in October 1st.
1st of October.
Right. We have, let's say we have the referendum after that.
Mm-hmm.
We would then use that electoral register. So anybody who's registered on or before, whenever the referendum is held, will be eligible.
Yeah, so at the publication of every official register, the register before that becomes null and void. So the only active and live register is the one that's in force for that particular quarter. The next go round is 1st of October, and the next one after that would be the 1st of January.
Every quarter is
every quarter.
And I say that hopefully clearly to encourage people. Go get registered to vote.
Yeah.
You never know when you might want to participate in an election, a referendum, or something of national importance.
So one of the painful parts of our existing legislation in relation to voter registration is that the timelines for the quarters and the cutoff for registration is quite long. The leader of the opposition, I know whenever the elections law makes it way to the LA for modification, that'd be one thing he'd be driving home. So our cutoff for the October 1st list was actually the 1st of July, which was a public holiday. So we pushed that to 8 p.m. on the 2nd of July, and we had, I think, our last person walked in the door at 7:55 p.m.
In 30 seconds.
So that list is now being finalized. The revised list for the October would be out, I think it's the 16th or the 18th of this month, coming into force. So that deadline's already been crossed for the 1st of October. We're now collecting signatures up until the 1st of October for January. So it's a 3-month lag before you get on, which is painful in this day and age. And I think it's one of the recommendations that we would make to the legislators, that we tweak that so that this process can be shortened. Most people don't even notice it when there's not a major issue going on, but when there's something like this, or we're coming up to a general election, that time frame then becomes
significant,
sort of frustrating.
Because if you have election in May, for argument's sake, now and also a magistrate, I think it is it. I guess. No,
the list is quite formal. So the registering officers, they have a duty in law. Punishable by imprisonment to ensure that the list is as accurate as they know. So if they knowingly sign off on their electoral districts, that's then compiled, sent to the chief magistrate, who then reviews and signs off. So that official list is a list approved by a magistrate. We represent it electronically, but there's actually a physical signed copy of the list that is then official for that 3-month period.
And as you said, there is consequences to it. So if an elector, for instance, goes through the list after and says, John Brown Smith Ebanks Borden is on the list, but he no longer lives here, or he is whatever.
Yeah, then there's a duty for that registering officer to investigate. I mean, the other bit while we're on the list is, we've fielded some comments on the fact that persons that were deceased are on the list. And there's a couple of reasons why that could appear to be happening. One is that same 3-month delay. So if somebody passed within the last 3-4 weeks, so since the 1st of July, they won't be updated in terms of removing them until 1st of October, right? So there's 3 months for which they would still appear on all our lists, because we can't modify the list within that 3-month period. The other bit is that folks who pass away that are not on island, our general registry, even our funeral homes, are not always aware. So when we get those lists from those entities, we don't pick them up on that. So if persons are aware, we simply want them to give us a call, send a quick email. All they have to do is provide information. We'll seek to confirm that it is the case, and then we'll take it from there in relation to removing persons who are deceased from the list. But that's an important point as well.
Indeed. And I think one of the things that, as we understand it, maybe if we're off, they can clarify. You're 17, you're going to be 18 on or before the next election. You can get, your paperwork, you can get registered. If your birthday is the day of election, if the day before, once it's not after, you're going to be able to participate. That wasn't the way it was way back then.
No, so the date for the election is typically announced sort of in the November time frame, leading up to May general election. So that registration thing is then extended forward, so that individuals would then be able to get reflected on that 1st of April list if they turn 18 on or before the day of the national election. Wouldn't quite be the same for a referendum, depending on what the timeline is. In the UK, timeline for a referendum is sort of 6 months. So
6 weeks for elections.
Yeah, and we're looking at, if we have to mobilize, we actually have people preparing training material and all that now in the event that we are activated for that, because we can't wait around on those matters to be decided. We have to prepare now. But we're looking at, sort of 8 to 10 weeks runtime, assuming that we're going to be doing things like postal ballots for persons overseas, students and otherwise, to be able to vote, as well as mobile voting and that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, man. Well, as I listened to you, I was like to laugh, and I'm thinking, you use word like activate, mobilize, and I'm thinking I can see you in elections office, Transformers, but I won't do that. We got children, right?
Oh, fantastic team of people, and they pleasantly surprised me with their initiative and their level of detail. I have to give kudos to Mr. Gomez and Mr. Connor and Mr. Colfer Scott. They've left a really solid foundation in relation to the way the office runs. And you talked about timing the other way. So Mr. Gomez would always say, if it starts at 7 o'clock and you come at 7 o'clock, you're late, right?
Yeah.
So that's driven home.
No, it's seriously, man. And that's something that I say, and I know so much. Again, we repeat too many things that are accurate, and over time they're not questioned and challenged, and they become accepted, right? But this thing about Cayman time, I'm thinking, not in my household.
Yeah.
Your dad will tell you going fishing. All you're doing is you're going to go out in the boat and enjoy yourself. But he's leaving at a certain time.
Yeah.
You don't catch that boat.
Yeah.
You catch the next trip.
And I said it wrong too. So 7 o'clock would either be 0700 or 1900. It wouldn't be 7 because it's military.
Yeah. But you go a little bit beyond me. All right. So as we speak to Mr. Howell as the supervisor of elections and the verification process, I certainly appreciate you taking the time and sharing with us as we get to what the process and the different things. Let me ask a question now. It is summer. Some of us are traveling. We may be away. We may already travel. If we haven't verified yet, we haven't come in person. You haven't gotten to us. What's the challenge?
And this is a really critical point. So if there's a bit that sort of interrupts my sleep is to be able to cover the persons who are mobile while we're out doing our door-to-door or otherwise not being able to find them. But for persons who are away, so they can call us at our number 949-8047. They can email us, office@elections.ky. They can find us on Facebook. All our contact information is there, or on our website. They will reach out to our office. We will in turn go back to them individually. We would ask them for certain official documents, and we would send them a verification form for them to complete in the presence of somebody else, and then they return that to us. If the registering officer needs a bit more assurance, they may actually arrange for a telephone conversation with the individual to assure themselves that is. So we started treating it like we would a postal ballot for a general election. And while not the same as our door-to-door process, it's one that we've implemented so that we don't disenfranchise anyone that isn't here. But ideally, we would want people to come in before they leave. We have those extended hours. This Saturday coming up, we're going to be 10 to 3 other elections office location, also at Foster's Food Fair Strand and Foster's Countryside. And folks can use that opportunity to pop in with their identification, sign up their verification in the presence of one of our officers who will witness that, and then they're off. And that's a really quick process, 1-2 minutes, and they're done. So, all
right. So take us through the verification process. So just to recap, you shared that the elections office, the hour is 8:30 to 6, Monday to Thursday.
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
Okay, and then 5 on Fridays. 8:30 to 5.
Yeah.
Saturday 10 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then we're going to be doing door to door again this weekend.
Door to door is continuing on.
Yeah.
Let me get it right now. So I'll start in the east: Cayman, Brackville, Cayman, East End, North Side, Boddentown and West Bay. Next week we're hoping to spin up certain parts of Georgetown, so we'll start to converge on Georgetown. Georgetown constitutes 44% of the signatures that we received thus far, so that's 2,400 and I think it's 407 signatures within Georgetown, so we're moving into that area next. But we are still canvassing all those areas in relation to finding the last remaining bits. So some people were away long weekend last weekend, folks are taking their school shopping trips and those sorts of things. So they're back on the island. We're checking with family members. If we come and knock on the door, we're checking with neighbors to find out where folks are. We'll leave a calling card there with the name of the verifier, their personal contact number, so they can reach out to them, and we can set up a time. So some people, we go to their houses, but they're working, so they call us back and say, I actually work in Georgetown. Can somebody come by my workplace at lunchtime? And so we've done those one-offs with the verifiers, arranging for those mutually convenient times to make that happen. We've even had one verifier take her forms to church and was able to get close to a dozen people, verifying their signatures with her then and there at that point in time. So we are trying to make most efficient use of our resources and minimize the time necessary. That's one of the reasons why we've been able to move, so quickly. But it is important that we do it accurately, because if you realize now folks are coming in, we might be going out. We don't want to double count folks. We want to be able to keep all that synchronized. So there's a bit of machinery, which is why we hadn't fired up Georgetown quite yet, because we want to ensure that we worked out the processes and ensure that we're accounting for all of that, including, folks are documenting their visits. So every time they go to a door and knock, we write down, daytime, approach nobody at home, left a card, so we're documenting those visits as well. So it is a holistic process that we're doing, but we're also doing it very quickly as well. So
and so thus far now, I think 1,503 signatures.
And that was as of Monday night. So
Monday,
as you'd imagine, other than the rain last night, which I understand some of our folks were still dodging the rain and getting in, some door to door last night. But that number, so I'm hoping to be able to publish. So tomorrow's Thursday, to be able to publish some numbers, if not tomorrow night, on Friday, and then again next week. So my aim is to try and do 2 updates of that web ticker per week.
All right. Well, maybe if it's okay, I'll ask you. If not, I'll pull it up. You've launched the election officers has launched a web ticker. We can follow it real time, almost. What's happening. Access that. Tell us about it.
Elections.ky, if you're doing it from your phone, which most of our people are now, you'd have to scroll on a bit because it's near the bottom.
Right.
But it's there, it's viewable on the phone, so it has the number of petition signatures received that are those of registered voters, the number of forms received by our office, and the number of forms remaining outstanding, and the percentage of forms received, and the date and time of the last update. So again, the last update would have been Monday at 9 p.m. when we were wrapping up those counts then. But we've had people in the field, for another week. So or the better part of another week, so we'll have an update.
All right. And as the first caller reminds, I keep thinking of his comments, the process that the staff or the elections officer is undertaking, from the church. It just shows 2 things: the diligence, but also how we as a community have been responsive, how we see this as crucial to our democracy, how we can participate. Now, take us through the verification process. What would that involve? I want to be verified. I'm an elector. I signed the petition. What happens next? How does that go?
So if you are one of the petitioners that we've received their signature and we're coming to your house, we will pre-populate our verification form. So we'll have your full name as appears on the register of electors. It'll have your electoral district. We have your address, so we sort of know where we're headed to. That form then, and your voter ID number is on there as well. That form then simply needs the individual to read it, and if they certify that they're indeed the one that signed a petition and the wording of the petition is on there, they give their signature in presence of one of our verifiers. They would want to have an ID to compare that is the said person.
So the voter's ID would suffice?
The voter's ID or a passport or driver's license if they don't have the voter ID. That's done, witnessed, and the person walks away with a completed form. They update the back of that and bring it into our office. So we dispatch sort of 7 to 80 names per individual. So that's the list that they're working with. And the target that we set for them is half of their list should be done within the first week. We're hoping for the second week to finish up the final remains, and then those persons that are a little bit more difficult to find, we then have the registering officers who are absolutely fantastic. I mean, their knowledge of
that's where they reaching off.
KMI and family connections. So we might not have an up-to-date telephone number for an individual, but they're going to remember, here's a brother or a cousin or a mother, and they will, make the connections and then find out where they are and what number to reach them at. So Absolute fantastic team. I mean, I'm so pleased to be able to work with brilliant people like that.
Yeah, man. And this is something that I think. I go back to your conversation at the training in the UK and the fellow in African nation talking 80 million, and we say we don't have a couple dollars in a sense. Unfortunately, too many of us see that, and we make aspersions of the connections and talk about nepotism, all sorts of isms, and the allegations and illusions about corruption and but those things work in your favor when you want to know these things, and it helps to lend authenticity to these things, because people don't want to be disenfranchised, and they shouldn't.
No, absolutely. And one of the ways that we're moving quickly as well is that we've intentionally used persons who are familiar with the area.
Mm-hmm.
So in East End we have 2 East Enders going door to door. Not only are the chances are higher that people open the door for them at 8 o'clock at night, but they then also notifying individuals, and they'll know, oh, Mr. So-and-so is actually at Georgetown Hospital. He's not in East End, so let me put his form in my car, and I'll run by the hospital on my lunchtime and pick him up. So those are the sorts of things that happen when you have that sort of local knowledge, and then can move very, very, very efficiently at that way. Well,
I'm hoping that as a public that we don't shy away from that, and we don't take it for granted, and you can still have that level of, I guess, customized personal service, still be professional, still be competent, still be ethical in your dealings. It's just much more personable. Mm-hmm. Companies talk about concierge service. Well, that's what this is.
No, and we are trying to be we're respectful of persons' confidentiality,
Mm-hmm.
so we're not aiming to reveal anybody's identity with what we're doing, but in relation to the numbers and our pace and those, we are trying to be as transparent as we can in relation to here's where we are, which is why we've fired up that web ticker, so we have unfiltered direct access, and we're accountable to say, here's another week and here's what we've done. So if people are unhappy with the pace that we're doing, they can get on the horn for your show or other shows and let us know, or call me directly.
Fair enough, but respectfully, sir, if we haven't ourselves, we think we signed a petition, we haven't been verified, instead of waiting, we could come to your office.
Absolutely.
You're on, unless Saturday is a day that because of church or work you're unable to get to one of the, again this week you're at 2 of the supermarkets, the Strand and the Foster's Countryside.
Yeah.
Right, so we can go there. We can come to the office. I mean, we can do things to speed along. Doesn't mean
absolutely. So, and people have they have legitimate concerns if they refuse to sign initially. There was a lady who refused to sign when we went to her house, and the person invited her to come to the elections office. Her thing was she didn't remember signing. She didn't know that she didn't sign, but she couldn't remember. Now, remember that the petition has been circulating for, sort of 10 plus months.
Mm-hmm.
So she came in, she said, I am not certain because there's my name is sort of unique, but there's another person that has the exact same name as me. The lady was from the district of West Bay. So she was
had
like,
to be now.
I want to be able to tell my husband I need to change my name. So I was able to go in and give her a redacted version of the petition page with just her information, and she goes, sir, I really can't remember signing this thing, but this is my name, my handwriting, and my signature, so I had to have done it. So please, can you give me the form so I can go ahead and verify? So, that was a totally innocent thing where somebody totally, people are really busy these days. So, this lady forgot that she did that. So, it was really good that we were able to show her that, that one line, and she was able to complete her process.
But it speaks to the process of the collection, but also the way you've collated information in your offices as well. But I think it also shows that our people, when we involve with these issues, there has to be a timeliness to it as well. So the issue is on one hand. We want to talk about the national interest test, as you worded it earlier, and not to make it the political aspect of it, because that's where it's going to end up with the question. There are those who say, but of course this has to be national importance. Of course, if it's a referendum, it must be. Your perspective as the capital supervisor elections?
So, as my supervisor of election hat is on, that is not my territory to step in at all. So that's solely a matter for the cabinet. As I shared on Mr. Connor's show this morning, it's only at the invitation of the government in relation to the verification process why the elections office is involved at all, because as most people will point out, the Constitution, which is the only law in which standing legislation in which referendums are mentioned, does not mention the elections office anywhere in those provisions at all. So the only mention would be that 25% of registered electors. So it's through that avenue an invitation to Cabinet to verify why we're doing what we're doing. But all the other bits are squarely with the Cabinet, and then if it passes that, then the Parliament. But
I'm mindful for that reason only. But I was enjoying a rather engaged conversation earlier with some individuals, and I don't know if I need to offer chocolate or if I need to get Miss Susan to sing to them. But there's something that can induce those individuals to come around and have a chat, because they bring certain things, and not because they may be sort of lawyers and the like. But there's a way to interpret, and there's this expectation of what was the spirit of the law and intent and inference and the like. And some of them, with their consent, I'll share, we were talking about this whole issue, and they thought, the intent was that this would be expected, but then you start to put minds to it, and you start to put, their words, a spin, then you can get other interpretations that could cause people to be a little bit more cautious before they proceed, and the like. And I was wondering, not for you to answer, sir, in which way, obviously if you wish, but are we getting to a point where we become so caught up into verbiage and the like that we be cautious and we can manipulate it to go one direction or the other at the expense of democracy, as it were?
I've always said that I wanted to practice a little bit of family law in my retirement, but I need to go to law school first, so I hadn't gone to law school yet. All I can say is, as a lay person reading that, there are a couple of provisions within Section 70. There's another one that says, people can't initiate a matter that relates to human rights for obvious reasons, right? So you could have a majority support for taking away the right of a minority, which is a legitimate right, but they just get outnumbered in that. So that's one of the provisions. But the way that I read it is that those are two separate tests that have to be passed, and my only focus and my only remit is on the verification. So I'm not going to walk down that slippery slope towards the other bit. Yeah.
No, and I will say deliberately directly. It's not something I would invite you. Lawyers can come and debate it, or other public pundits, all the politicians can come. And I want to share that because I listened to the conversation earlier with individuals and I thought, it may not have been the intent. It may be as you've shared, but the fact that as minds come around the table and you get an opportunity, it could be, I think like I said, they use the word spun a certain way to lead to a certain interpretation. And again, it comes back to the populace being involved and informed and trying to come as best as they can to some conclusive outcome so that it is as explicit as possible.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, when we return from our break, somewhat of maybe another political aspect of it, but there's a question to be asked, and how that question is going to be worded, and the determination. Most of us know the answer. Some of us will be still surprised by, really, that's how it goes. Well, the question is, who decides the question, and how, and then is there a timeline once the process has been verified for a referendum to be had, and if so, should there be a referendum? Back to the public interest test. Can we ask some of those things?
You can ask.
Okay, well, those are the questions we're going to ask. We're going to talk about other things. Really enjoy Mr. Wesley Howard's time, and hopefully remind us how we can be a part of the verification process. The phone lines are open on 949-8037 or 949-6990, or toll free 1-800-534-8255. Let's pause and take a break. We'll go to our headline news at 2. When we come back, we'll talk today.
The Tuesday and Thursday edition of The Business Buzz is brought to you by Cayman Medical Supplies, providing quality pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and consumer products to healthcare providers, retailers, and ultimately the patients at a reasonable rate in a friendly, caring, and timely manner. Cayman Medical Supplies is located at number 93 Smith Road, Windward Center. Telephone 949-6211.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman. We've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
With your latest news, I'm April Cummings. A public lands amendment bill is gazetted. This bill amends the Public Lands Law 2017 to provide for a change in the composition of the membership of the Public Lands Commission to allow members of the commission who are not civil servants to be chairpersons of the commission. You can find the bill online at gazettes.gov.ky. The Cayman Islands is now up to 14 medals at the NatWest International Island Games in Gibraltar, with 5 gold medals in squash, 2 in swimming, and 1 in athletics. Swimming has a silver and bronze, and athletics, 2 silver and 2 bronze. In the women's 4x100-meter freestyle relay, the team of Jillian Crook, Allison Jackson, Avery Lambert, and Kyra Bess wrapped up the race in first place with a time of 3:52.14. In international news, Britain's ambassador to the U.S. has resigned after being branded a fool and made a diplomatic nobody by U.S. President Donald Trump. This following the leak of the envoy's unflattering opinions about the U.S. administration. Storm clouds gathered over the transatlantic relationship as veteran diplomat Kim Darroch said he could no longer do his job in Washington after Trump cut off all contact with the representatives of one of America's closest allies. A state coroner on the Greek island of Crete, who examined the body of a woman believed to be a missing American scientist, said that she died as a result of a criminal act. The coroner told the Associated Press that final confirmation was still needed to confirm the identity of the body that was found Monday, but added it was highly likely it was Suzanne Eaton, a 59-year-old molecular biologist who was reported missing last week. Those are your headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. I'm April Cummings.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
There are plenty of reasons to be a Logic customer. There's lightning-fast internet connectivity. There's the great overall customer experience. And now, you can improve your Wi-Fi connectivity with Logic Boost Wi-Fi for free. With Boost, you can extend your freedom to stream, game, and download seamlessly anywhere in your home, like your patio or your underground lair if you have one. Sign up now for any Logic Bundle package and get free Boost Wi-Fi for a limited time. Visit logic.ky for details.
Some of us have perfect skin, and some of us have trouble with acne, age spots, and sun-damaged skin. Protect your skin, reduce the effects of sun damage, and restore a healthy, glowing look with dermatology treatment at Beyond Basics Medical Day Spa. General, cosmetic, and surgical dermatologist services by Dr. Geronimo Jones include treatment of acne, keloids, eczema, hair and nail disorders, and skin complications from chronic sun damage. Dermatology treatments are covered by most insurance providers. Book your consult with Dr. Geronimo Jones at Beyond Basics today. Call 945-2737.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing and joining us. And in the studio, we have the company of the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell. And for those of you who sent your thoughts via our WhatsApp, 925-3261, thanks very much. We shared some of them with Mr. Wesley during the break. I can repeat them for us, but I think he has like a photographic memory. I mean, he's got it all reminded. So some were very complimentary and sending kudos. So I think that's important to be recognized, not just the competence, the diligence, the professionalism, but and that very personalized attention to making sure people are verified publicly. I add to their sentiments of sort of gratitude.
I'm grateful for that, but if I was doing this alone, I'd be lost. It's a fantastic team of professionals who know what they're doing and are getting on with it, and I'm happy to be heading up that team, but it is definitely teamwork.
All right, and then there's one of the sentiments about the updating the website ticker and the like.
Yes, so an important point to make, I actually made it on the show earlier this morning. So currently the ticker is ticking down the number that was first submitted in terms of electors on there. So as we receive the next batch, we'll amend the ticker to show a countdown to the 25% rather than the number of valid voter petitions submitted. I think that would be a more meaningful one. And we also then hope to add on in the very near future the number of persons who have declined to be verified. So, as we investigate those and are able to pan them out, we can also add that on there as well.
Maybe for another discussion, we'll see what it comes to, because I wasn't going to broach it publicly, but since you brought it up, we've had just two people, who said, they asked me an opinion. I thought, are you going to pay me for my opinion? So I'm a hair consultant here. Why are you asking me my opinion? I'm not qualified. They signed the referendum. I didn't ask, they didn't offer. I don't think it was important. Are you for or against? They signed it because they thought it was important from a country's perspective. But there's something has transpired, whether that's family discussion, whatever that thing is. And they're thinking, I don't really bother with this. I don't want to be verified. There's only two out of 10,000, 2 out of 5,000. Is it significant? To me, it is. Two people.
No, so far, the persons who have declined to be verified on the initial call has been very, very small numbers. So that, and for each of those, we're looking into, because like I say again, the persons going door to door are actually logging their visits and what's said and whatnot. So where there's confusion over did I sign, didn't I sign, those are the ones that we can set aside. The most concerning are persons that say I did not sign. So in that case, we want to check and see, well, is this a case of persons with similar names and they're matching up. We're matching up a voter to a different voter number and that sort of thing, or has somebody signed on behalf of somebody else, which is quite concerning all around for us and the CPR group as well.
Something that I only thought about recently, because I don't know about other people, but you sign a signature, and I try when I'm signing to be consistent, but it changes. It's not the same signature, and depending on what you're pressing on when you sign it, that pen you're holding, it could be a little bit different. So without it having in person, yes, I sign, yes, I want to be verified, yes, that is me. No, that mightn't be the signature that you see here, but we can do that. That's separate and apart. The concern would be for that person who may have a change of heart.
In some cases, a person signed a petition with their, recent married name or recent divorce name, and the signature matches that name, but it's a totally different name than what's in the register of electors. Okay. So there's a bit of matching that happens in the back end. So we want to ensure that, we've gotten that right in relation to what we've received and how we're proceeding. So there's some legitimate reasons why signatures can be, completely wide off. And those would be in for expert interpretation and otherwise, but following a process that a notary or a JP would do. So if you're signing in front of me and you're showing your ID, I can say that you are the person on your ID, and I witness your signature, and I can attest to that. So that is the process that we're doing. So for the persons that come into the office, we also take the opportunity while they're there to ensure that we get their latest telephone number and email address, so we can contact them if we have to. And when we go to the houses, similarly, they sign off on that verification form. We do a what's called a Form 13, a change of information. So if you're registered in West Bay North, but we find you in Boddentown East, we'll take the opportunity to update your information and pass that information on to the registering officers for both electoral districts. So
now, from that perspective, as you were sharing earlier, just to repeat, if a person wants to be verified, it seems to be a fairly easy process. There isn't a lot to do. The form to be completed. but go through it once more for us again. We may even ask you again before the show.
No, absolutely, and it's very important. So when we go to houses, we sort of know who we're going to see. So we have a pre-printed form with the name of the individual, their electoral district, and we have their address, so we know we're going to. So we just ask for a bit of identification, match up the voter ID number if they have their voter's card. If not, we jot down their ID. They sign in front of one of our officers. We witness that signature and date and time it, and we're done.
That's it.
If we happen to, and we've changed this since we started in Northside and East End, one of our verifiers went into a home in Northside on the weekend, and the son and daughter-in-law of that family were visiting. They don't vote in Northside, so we didn't have their forms ready. They were registered in Georgetown, but they signed a petition and wanted to verify. So we've now gearing up to add blank forms to our verifiers as they go out. So if they run into somebody else that wants to verify while they're out looking for individual persons, they can also take those details. We're also receiving some persons now coming in to sign verification forms who we haven't received their signatures yet from the CPR group because they're batching another set to bring to us. So we have some forms that we've received that doesn't match the first list that we're keeping separate to match up with the following list coming in that we expect to come in very shortly.
With that last part, well, we'll come to that. Let's just finish this section up. That official sort of ID, picture ID of some sort.
Yeah.
So driver's license or passport or voter's ID.
Absolutely.
Something of that nature. If you don't have a voter's ID, not a big deal. Yeah. You can still be verified once you have some other official passport, driver's license or the like.
Absolutely.
All right. From the perspective now of the continuing effort, if I can phrase it that way, because we know there are people who have signed, some who signed before they were eligible to vote. Now that they got the key mark and they re-sign and the like, for those who may have signed recently. When you're doing the verification process and you hit the target of 25% of the number we're looking at, so you told us 5,292 would be the number we're looking at. Once you get there, even if there were 10,000 people who had signed it, but once you get to the 5,000, you stop or do you continue?
Yeah, we plan to stop at that point because the test is have 25% of the electorate sign this petition. So we hit that. That's the end of the verification. We've met the target in relation to that particular test. So that aspect would be over.
Okay, and it's kind of like
which is the reason why we want to change the ticker.
Yeah.
To tick down to 25% rather than to tick down to the total number submitted, which is in excess of the 25% at this point.
Right. Which would give people the wrong sort of information and perception.
Yeah, because we could potentially hit 25%, but not of the names submitted. Well, actually,
no, of the electoral, but not of the names submitted. Yeah,
we will actually hit the 25% of the electoral register first. Yeah,
it's kind of like if you got a test and you had 80% pass mark, and once you get, let's say, you answer every question correctly up to 80%. The remaining 20% you may or may not get correct, but you don't have an opportunity to test your skill on those remaining 20%.
And we sort of use that same 80-20 rule for what we're doing now. So we fully expect to get sort of that 80% of people within the first week or two, and then sort of that mopping up exercise to find those that are a little bit more difficult to find. We think will take a few more weeks as we deploy extra effort to get to those persons.
All right. Now, once this process is done, let's say it's finished the end of July. Today is the 10th, so it's over by the end of July. Could you take us through if it's? Let me ask Miss Susan if it's okay with Chad. If not, she'll take a break and she'll tell us. We want to confirm the process. So you've now verified the 25%. What happens? What sort of timeline we're looking at? We also want to roll it into the formulation of the question. We will talk until she tells us otherwise, man. We're already here. So let's go to the promise now that it's end.
Section 72 of 70, subsection 2 of the Constitution then sets out what happens in relation to the referendum. So there shall be presented to Cabinet a petition signed by not less than 25% of persons registered as electors in accordance with Section 90. That's the Register of Electors qualification section of the Constitution. Subsection B is then Cabinet shall settle the wording of the referendum question or questions within a reasonable time period as prescribed by law, and Cabinet shall make a determination as on the date the referendum shall be held in a manner prescribed by law. So that again, that squarely on a remit of Cabinet, and because it is the passage of law, then by extension, law passing has to take place at the Legislative Assembly. So that's another process for that to go through.
Right.
Has to be gazetted and assented and all that stuff as well.
Okay.
But yeah.
Now, with that in mind, and given that as we understand it, certainly clarify if we have it incorrect, the Elections Office and staff, the supervisor reports to the Office of the Governor, who has remit. The Governor sits in the Cabinet. So is the Premier. I think co-chair, one is the President, whatever.
The Governor chairs.
Governor chairs.
But is non-voting.
Yeah, and so the Premier and his Cabinet is there with the others and the like. So and I'm just thinking from the conversation I had earlier with some others, with that sort of almost dual role, one hand you have the Governor making sure the Elections Office and the reporting there, and then the political elected Cabinet formulating the question, and then the LA having to vote on it. Intervening and sort of oversight of the Governor and accountability in the direction.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a...
and it's not unique to jurisdictions like ours
right,
that are a little bit smaller. Some jurisdictions have independently appointed electoral commission, which sort of deals with the policy type issues. Then below that is the equivalent of the Elections Office, which is the machinery by which the actual logistics and arrangements for polling and maintaining voters is done. In some cases, there's an Elections Office that sits under the Cabinet Office, so it still reports to Parliament, but not directly. There are all sorts of mechanisms. Ours has been for ages now an Elections Office with a supervisor reporting to the Governor, but really left alone to run an independent process in relation to. So essentially, I'm reporting to the Governor in relation to how we're going about things, and requesting some advice from or legal aspects from the Attorney General and things. But for the most part, we get on with that aspect. The difference between a referendum like this and or even a government initiated referendum is that come general election, the LA is dissolved. Ministers sort of serve out the remainder of their term. So that whole machinery of the elected government is dissolved pending the successful election and appointment of new MLAs. And that process, then there is no sort of sitting government at that point, although the ministers sort of continue in their roles up until sort of a day or two before general election. So, long before my appointment by the Governor, we had supervisors of elections who ran that process, but that then is the office reporting to the Governor on that. Referendums by nature are machinery that goes through the Cabinet and the LA for bespoke legislation or for activation in terms of the date and the question and that sort of thing. So the Cabinet is much more, I won't say involved, I don't want that to be misconstrued that they're involved in a verification process, because they're not, but they're very involved in the petition and the referendum aspect, because that's what the Constitution calls for. So, giving the Cabinet and the LA the power to set referendum law and call for referendums. So
once the verification process has been completed, the report, as it were, goes to the Cabinet. Yes, we were satisfied. We've met, now 25% of the threshold as required. The Cabinet then has to take it on board for the question and the timing, and that could conceivably take as long as it takes.
Yeah.
I won't ask you. No, that's not for you.
So again, I mean, the normal waiting period for legislation to be gazetted prior to going to the LA is 21 days. Whether or not that would be waived is another matter. I think that's another constitutional aspect for that period of sort of public consultation on that. So, and then you have the process of debate, which could go on for some period of time, assent of the law, passage of the law, which then authorizes the machinery to start going. So,
and for what it's worth, too, I mean, just not this is not a discussion that hasn't or isn't being had everywhere. You know, those questions, some posed them earlier to us, in our private gatherings, and they're saying, the 21-day waiting period isn't there. The debate in the House isn't necessary from their perspective, because we've already gone through the sort of the public aspect of it. The legislators now have the will of the people, as it were, so let's get on with the business, and others will say, well, no, there'll be parliamentarians who have a particular view and would want that to air. There's opportunity to campaign, there's opportunity to this, that, and the next. It's an interesting process.
I heard one of the parliamentarians on, I think it was this week, saying, I was up to the wee hours of the morning pouring through legislation which was tabled in the 21 days, preparing for the upcoming LA, and when there are multiple bills and complex legislation, that time is necessary. But
that's not for us, right?
That's one next step down the road. Yeah, so.
They get paid the big bucks for that. We have the final break to take. When we come back, we have the continuing closing thoughts as well from Mr. Wesley Howell. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Wow, it seems I buy a battery every year.
Oh, for real? You should buy your car battery from Vantman. Their batteries are tough. I have a 3-year warranty on mine.
Oh, I know that trick. I take it back and they charge me a percentage of the price.
Hear me out, bro. Not at Vant Bobo. You can get a 3-year full warranty, no charge. And if they install it at Vant, it includes free towing and jumping service. And let me tell you, you will never have to get your hands dirty changing no battery.
Get Motorcraft Max or Plus battery for 20% off when it's installed by the service department at Vamp Motors on Walker's Road. Now that's a deal you can get charged up about. Vamp Motors, keeping you on the road.
Money Sense, bringing an informed financial perspective to the Cayman community. Brought to you by the CFA Society Cayman Islands and sponsored by One TradeX. Stock markets in the world's largest economy are at all-time highs, signifying the future is bright. But global bond markets are also at all-time highs, signifying profound concern. Join us this Thursday, 7:30 a.m. on Money Sense as we review these conflicting economic signals. Follow us on Twitter and tweet questions to @MoneySense Radio. Money Sense, the only personal finance radio show in the Cayman Islands, brought to you with the support of One TradeX.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
All
the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Turning to international news.
Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. Radio Cayman News.
Headlines.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. And as we continue our discussion with the Supervisor of Elections, Mr. Wesley Howell, appreciate your thoughts, and have an email, and I do offer up an apology here. An individual sent through some sentiments and challenged to get through on her phone, but technology doesn't work, so it's not deliberate. Hopeful it's not. The question the person writes is the question of the topic of the referendum being a matter of quote unquote national importance, being a separate test, should, in my view, in accordance with that part of the preamble to Section 7 of the Constitution, simply be a question of whether the matter concerned in the referendum is a matter which pertains to or relates to the country as a whole, as opposed to it relating to a particular section, such as a district or a group of districts, for example. I hope this helps to shed some light on the question. Many thanks. Now, we've been a number of people. National importance, not national importance, Mr.
And I think that would possibly become the matter of some debate coming up, but that's not a matter for our office. Our role for this is strictly on the verification side. So,
well, I'll be honest with you, man. It's where I think as a public we start to get through, and I want to make sure all of our channels. I think that's the word we're told to use now, to make sure the people who are sending in their messages are not missing any. presume I missed a couple. Nope, nothing here. All right. Now, from that perspective, as a people, where do we go from here? Because you're going to do ongoing process.
Yeah, so we'll continue to use our social media channels to get the message out. We're also producing some radio adverts that we'll have on all the radio stations, because we realize that the demographic for the radio stations can be different, vastly different. So we're using that mechanism as well. But the message is really, if you've signed a petition and we haven't seen you, and you need to see us in order to get that verification done, please, seek us out. Our extended hours, Monday to Thursday, 8:30 to 6:30 p.m. Fridays, 8:30 to 5. Saturdays, 10 to 3. We'll announce weekly what supermarkets we'll be at, thanks to the Foster Food Fair team for allowing us to utilize their district, their supermarkets in the various districts to set up. Had a tremendous effort last Saturday. 110 persons signed up through the two supermarkets. So, really solid effort there. And, thank you for the folks who are, welcoming our verifiers into their homes to get that process done quickly and seamlessly, so that we can get on and complete our task as quickly as we can, as accurately as we can.
Well, we heard the public sentiments from members of CPR. I think from the public, and I can say from what I've heard from different people, even some of the churches presumably have been saying to their members, you may have a view one way or the other, but from what I understand from just a couple of churches, listen, we can do it here after church, we can do it, after prayer on Wednesday or Thursday, whatever, because it's for the country. It's part of the democracy. Now, just for, again, one more time of repetition, if we are going to be out near or at the supermarkets, carry our voter's ID, carry our driver's license, more likely we have it with us. Once we go to the table, the staff is there. Hey, I want to be verified. The process is relatively easy and painless.
Yeah.
Shouldn't take long. We can do it then and there.
Absolutely. If persons want to update their information or get a voter ID card, the voter ID card is only being done at the elections office location. That's where our equipment is set up for that. So they're happy for them to come in at any point during the week or on the weekend on Saturday to get that done. Really professional, friendly, accommodating staff members who make it happen.
All right. Well, I'm hoping that we can, because if it's easy to be verified, if we're able to do it before the timeline of, as you share, the end of this month or early part of August, the sooner the better. If
Absolutely.
we're traveling, let's do it now so that we get verified. If we have questions or concerns, it's a confidential process. Speak with you or the elections office staff.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, it's now just for the politicians to get on with it, right?
And that part is not ours.
That's not ours. Not yet. We'll have fun. Well, not you, because you're a professional person. That's for me. No, just kidding. Those guys are like, No, but I say this because I'm so enamored with our people. So grateful that we live in a society where we're seeing participation, and I hope it's not improper. I'll ask you as a friend, but also as a senior civil servant, to chastise me. Watching this process, to see the number of people, the different professionals that are involved, the volunteers, the different agencies that have come on board, the businesses even to say, listen, my understanding, we're not really for or against, but you can have a little corner here to do your thing, because it's a public sort of appeal that shows that the country has a level of civility and respect for the rule of law. And that, to me, was encouraging. People can come and sign, ask questions, they can get involved, they can challenge the government, they can support the government without fear, without retribution. That speaks well to a maturing society.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've worked with the elections office now going on 25 plus years, and as a civil servant involved with the electoral process all the way from when we used to compile the electoral register through door-to-door visits and signing up every time we had a national poll, to working as a deputy returning officer in West Bay. And having to make decisions that impacted candidates. I've not ever thought, geez, I'm a civil servant, I'm doing making these sorts of calls. Just done my work professionally, and we've moved on from there. So I can say that from my perspective, I've always just been able to work very professionally and deal with matters and make reasonable decisions based on what's before me.
Exactly.
Without fear or favor.
and the public respects it. They see it. They value the importance of it. And there's nothing like watching a national election. All of the banter and the fanfare and all of the things. But then on election day, yes, there's probably some campaigning and some things that are happening. But for the most part, it is conducted, on the part of the candidates in a way that you would hope other jurisdictions would, but they don't. But from the elections office and all that, there's a level of professionalism in the machinery that is amazing. The only complaint I have publicly is I would love to see the day where we can take our small children, if they're well controlled and behave, into that process and say, here, this is why we have the democracy we have. It's not there yet, but when I become governor.
Maybe you keep lobbying for that, then that might happen.
No, man.
But no, we have a solid foundation of running elections in this office, in this country, and I must say from the office from which I inherited from Mr. Gomez, as the outgoing supervisor of elections, he left a really good ship for us to continue to build on and proceed. Our international observers are in awe of what we do and how we do it, and sort of the checks and balances that we have to ensure that we have a transparent process that is also respectful of people's individual need for privacy as well as they come to cast in the polls.
There was a question that we hesitated, but since you mentioned it again, there have been a number of individuals who have called. Final question, I promise you, for today's session, that have shared. If and when there is this referendum, will there be international observers as we had in the general elections? Some are for, some are against, some are I don't know. I don't know whether that's a sort of a question to be asked now.
I welcome the scrutiny of international observers. It helps to secure the confidence in the results and ensures that we then also have some recommendations in which to implement to further improve our process. So if it does get to the stage of that, I would be requesting international observers for this process. I think as I also heard on one of the shows, the leader of the opposition's role is also to appoint scrutineers and observers as well. So if we do get to that point, that process will be as transparent as our regular polling for a general election.
Well, if you would accept for yourself personally and for your great team at the office, our continued public thanks. We know others have shared it. To see the professionalism, to see the competence, the diligence and the pace at which you're moving. It's not, because you're not doing your job, why it's not advancing as fast. So hopefully we as the populace now will continue to come out and get verified if it's our choice.
Absolutely.
All right. If we can, whether in person or by phone, help to bring information to the public on this process specifically, let us know. But anything in relation to the electoral process, glad to entertain you anytime you wish to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your support.
All right. Most welcome. And thanks to Radio K-Man. I mean, this is why we have this. I know it seems like a challenging, daunting task, but if we don't champion our democracy, do everything to protect and preserve it, one day, we'll look and say, wish we had. Well, let's make sure we do. Thanks to Miss Susan. She's always on the ball. Now, tomorrow's Thursday. We've got a couple of good things in store for you as we invite you to be a part of it. Friday, likewise as well. But let's take it one day at a time. And like a good song sings, easy living, easy loving. Well, let's see what tomorrow brings. Until then, be blessed.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.